We're back, everyone. With my sister Shoshana and my brother Dennis here, and we're going to be continuing this Torah study that we were just doing. We had a brief intermission. Now we're going to go back to the Targum I was reading from here. So we're going to start chapter 16, I believe, here. So it says, "And Sarah, wife of Abram, had no child, and she had a handmaid, Misratha, and her Misratha. Oh, okay, a
From
Mitzrite.
Mitzrayim.
Yeah, I'm like, the way the Aramaic does it is, it's like, I don't know. Either they don't know how to translate. The translator doesn't know how to translate Aramaic into English or something because it's like weird. And her name was Hagar. And Sarah said to Abram, "Behold, now Yahuwah has restrained me from childbearing." Now that's very important to note here. Okay, Yahuwah causes women to be barren, but he also causes them to give birth. You know, that's like something he reserves for himself. So, "And go in now to my handmaid, if perhaps I may have sons from her." Now this, our Greco-Roman mindset is already like going off like, this don't sound right, but in Hebrew culture, this was normal. This was actually something normal you'll see from time to time in the Torah where Yahuwah allows it. He allows, polygamy and stuff like that. And he's allowing it also because he's promised Abram his children will be like the stars of the heavens, as we read in the last chapter. So let's keep it in context too. He's going to be giving the seed of Yashrel is coming straight from Abram's loins. So let's remember that too. And he has to have 12 sons come from Jacob and all that. So there's many descendants that would come from Abram. I may have sons from her. So basically his wife Sarah, or Sarai, however your translation puts it, basically she's using her handmaid that she would have children from her with Abram. So it's almost like a midwife type of thing, but not really. It's like it's very weird to our culture, our American culture. I'll put it that way. And Abram received the word of Sarah, and Sarah, wife of Abram, took Hagar, her handmaid, the Mitzratha, the Mitzrite, at the end of 10 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan. So far we got the 10 years of the dwelling of Canaan, and gave her to Abram, her husband, to be his wife. Okay? So actually, her handmaid actually becomes a wife to Abram. So it's not just a concubine. It's not really a concubine. It's actually a legitimate wife. Hagar becomes a legitimate wife to Abram. "And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived, and she saw that she had conceived, and her mistress was displeased in her eyes." So unfortunately, which, you can kind of understand from our culture, but unfortunately, there was some jealousy. She didn't like the fact that now she's regretting what she had Abram do by going into her handmaid, and now she's jealous of Hagar. It says, "And Sarah said to Abram, I have a cause of right ruling against you, or judgment against you. I have given my handmaid to you, and she sees that she has conceived, and I am despised in her eyes. Yahuwah judge between me and you." And Abram said to Sarah, "Behold, your handmaid is in your hand." Basically, Abram's like, listen, she's in your power. She's your servant. She's under you, Sarah, so do as you please, basically. "Do to her as is pleasing in your eyes." And Sarah afflicted her, and she fled from before her. Oh, here we go. Here's a little ding-ding moment here. "And the angel of Yahuwah found her at the fountain of water in the wilderness, at the fountain in the way of Hagra. And he said, Hagar, handmaid of Sarah, where do you come? Where comest thou?" Basically, where do you come from? Where are you coming from? "And where are you going?" And she said, "From before Sarah, my mistress, do I escape? And the angel of Yahuwah said to her, return to your mistress and be subject under her hand. And the angel of Yahuwah said to her, multiply. I will multiply your sons, and they shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of Yahuwah said to her, behold, you have conceived and shall give birth to a son, and you shall call his name Yishmael, because Yahuwah has heard your prayer. Now that's interesting. So that's why he was named Yishmael. So that's very interesting, because Yahuwah has heard your prayer, and he will be untamable by man. Interesting. And he will be needy to everyone. So I guess needy in a way that he won't be rich, maybe. Maybe that's what it's referring to. And also all men will be needy to him. And before the face of all his brothers, he will dwell. So that's interesting. He's going to dwell before the face of all his brothers. Very interesting. And she prayed in the name of Yahuwah, who had spoken with her. And she said, thou art, I guess, Allah, seeing all. For she said, I also have begun to see after that he has revealed to me. Therefore she called the name of the well at which appeared the angel of the covenant. Huh, ding, ding. Malachi, anyone? Very interesting. In the Septuagint, in the book of Malachi, it says the angel of the covenant who you take delight in. So very interesting that the Aramaic here shows that the angel of Yahuwah, aka pre-incarnate Yahusha, is the angel of the covenant. Behold, it is between Rakam and Hagar, and Hagar bare to Abram a son. And Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bare, Yishmael. And Abram was son of 86 years when Hagar bore Yishmael unto Abram. So Abram, he didn't have a son until he was 86 years old. Wow. Mm-hmm. So very, very different back then. A lot of these different cultural differences I'm seeing here. So very interesting. So let's see here. So just to recap, and Sister Sally just joined us here. So we just read Genesis 16, sis, and pretty much we see so far, we see that Ishmael has been born. Okay, Hagar was fleeing from the
I've been on all this time. Excuse me. Are you talking about me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you this whole time. You just popped up on my screen, so I thought you just came in. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. I don't just it seems strange because I've already been on here for almost 8 minutes.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Maybe something's going on with my computer, possibly. All right. So the angel of Yahuwah is mentioned multiple times in this chapter. This is the first time that I've noticed we see the angel of Yahuwah being mentioned specifically in a chapter in Bereshith so far in this Aramaic.
Verse 17?
Yeah, let's see here. Let me go back to it. So first it says Yahuwah early in the chapter. The angel of Yahuwah, yeah, it looks like it was verse 16. So yeah, let me see here. It says, let me just make sure that's correct. I can also go. I'm pretty sure the Masoretic probably has that too, so I can probably check to see what exact verse that is. Let's see here. Oh, that's weird. Here, it's kind of weird. There wasn't that many verses in that version. Her handmaid, and you went into Hagar. Okay. But Abram said unto Sarai, behold, your handmaid is there. It's right as, there we go, verse 9 actually. It's the first time we see the angel of Yahuwah. Genesis 16, verse 9. And the angel of Yahuwah said unto her, return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hands. So basically, the angel of Yahuwah, a.k.a. pre-incarnate Yahusha, is telling Hagar to basically go back to Sarah. Go back go back to, you know, the person that you serve. And so we see that he actually baraks her and her son Ishmael, and she names him Ishmael because Yahuwah heard her prayer. So it's very interesting. This is a pretty interesting chapter, I think. And then you kind of see what happens with Sarah and the tension between her and Hagar. Unfortunately, you know, she regrets her initial decision to have Abram take Hagar as a second wife, and so there's gonna be now kind of like a rift we're gonna start seeing between the Ishmael and Isaac. Isaac is going to be the child of promise, as you'll see later on in Scripture, and the child of works is Ishmael, because Abram didn't trust Yahuwah initially. He wanted to have a child, you know, and didn't have patience, so he did it in his own way. So hence why Paul calls Ishmael the child by works. So for anyone that knows the New Testament, that's kind of where the difference lies. Isaac was the child Yahuwah promised him, and that's why that's his heir. That's where the seed is reckoned to, you know. So anyway, that's pretty much what I saw in this chapter. Let's see, we got the 10 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, so we're starting to see the dwellings of Canaan and Egypt starting to be mentioned. So first he's dwelling in Canaan. So we're going to start seeing, that's something to pay attention to. Oh, the big one I wanted to pay attention to too was towards the end of this chapter, the angel of the covenant. That is a big, that was a light bulb moment for me, knowing that Malachi talks about the angel of the covenant also. So to me, that was pretty interesting. So I think that's really, and then there was like a weird statement made about a prophecy about Ishmael and his brothers. It says that he will not be able to be tamed by man, and he will be needy to everyone, and also all men will be needy to him, and before the face of all his brothers. So very interesting there. So, I don't know if that's how. What was that, Brother Dennis? Can you say that again?
King James is a little bit different. It says that he's like an ass of a man, always fighting against others and fighting against his own people.
Oh boy, I wonder if there's like I wonder if the Mazarites have like something against Ishmael or something. I noticed that they're constantly attacking him in the Mazaritic text. They make it look like he was teasing Isaac, and that's why, you know, I remember there was a story that later on we'll see, but there's a difference between the Septuagint and Mazaritic text when it comes to that story. And I just noticed it seems like the Mazarites have like an agenda with Ishmael. Like they don't like him for some reason. Like I think there's one where it says sporting. He was sporting Isaac in the Septuagint, and the other one says he was mocking. So, you know, or making fun of Isaac. So a little different. But yeah, that's kind of interesting that the King James says it. You know, that a little stronger there. But anyway, I guess we could go to chapter 16 if there's not anything else anyone else wants to mention that they possibly got from this chapter. Okay. All right. Let's see here. So we're about to start chapter 17 here, and it starts off by saying, and Abram was the son of 99 years old. Wow. And Yahuwah was revealed to Abram and said to him, I am Al Shaddai, which if anyone that doesn't know the English translation of that would be Elohim Almighty, basically the Almighty Elohim. And it says, serve before me and be perfect, or the Septuagint would probably say here, be blameless. And I will set a covenant between my word and you. So the covenant's actually between Yahusha and Abram. That's kind of interesting. I'm going to have to take a note of that. It says, I will set a covenant between my word and you, and I will multiply you exceedingly much. And Abram fell on his face, and Yahuwah spake with him, saying, behold, I have dedicated my covenant with you. So even though the covenant's between his word, Yahusha, and Abram, now Yahuwah's calling it his covenant. That's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting there. And you shall be the father of many peoples, and your name shall no more be called Abram, but your name shall be called Abraham, because the father of many nations have I appointed you. And I will spread you abroad very greatly, and I will appoint to you that assemblies and kings who shall rule the peoples from you shall come forth, and I will establish my covenant between my word and you, and your sons after you unto perpetual generations, meaning like forever. Perpetual usually means like eternity or a long time. To be unto you a Elohim, and to your sons after you. And I will give to you and your sons after you the land of your habitation, all the land of Canaan for an everlasting possession. I will be unto them. Now it says Eloha. Would that be more correctly? It would be what? Aluha?
Let me see. Where are you saying that? Aluah.
Aluha. Okay.
Aluha.
Aluha. I like that. So I'm going to write that down. So they're using that. That's a singular version of Elohim. So I'm going to write that down. So Aluha. Okay. And Yahuwah said to Abram, and you, my covenant shall keep, and you and your sons after you in their generations. This is my covenant which you shall keep between my word and you. This is like the third or fourth time he's saying my covenant is between you and my word, aka Yahusha. So this is kind of interesting. And you and your sons after you to circumcise every male that is among you, and you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin. All right, here we go. Here's a little ding Torah moment here. Circumcision. So I'm going to write this down. This is the beginning of the circumcision commandment, which this is like what, the second to last verse of this chapter. Let's see here. To be between my word and you, his sons after you, to circumcise every male that is among you. And you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin. It shall be for the sign of the covenant between my word and you. So when us men, this is really important here. So we get a lot more meaning from this Aramaic version here, this Aramaic manuscript. When we are circumcised on the 8th day, it's a sign of the covenant between the Messiah, the Melchizedek, King, Yahusha, and us, mankind. So that's pretty big. That's something you don't see in the Masoretic text there. And the son of 8 days shall be circumcised among you, every male in your generations born in the house or bought with money. So this is where we get Numbers 15 later on in the Torah, where it says, one law for the sojourner and, basically the native born. So you have even servants of his house bought with money, of every son of the peoples who is not of your sons, meaning Gentiles that are converted, circumcising you shall circumcise the one born in the house, and him bought with money, and it shall be my covenant in your flesh for a covenant forever. And the male who's not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that man shall perish from the people. He has made void my covenant. Wow. That's really dangerous. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So people that, I know there's some groups and some assemblies too that I'm not even trying to, I'm not trying to, bash anyone, but this is something people need to pay attention to. All our brothers and sisters that are, have been awakened to keep the commandments and the instructions of the Father and the Son, you might want to pay attention to that, because that is not just for the Abrahamic covenant, that's for the new covenant too. So people that are, I know there's some people out there, messianics out there, that are saying, oh, well, we don't have to do it, it's not necessary, and all that. So there's an extreme side of it where they just don't think we need to do it anymore. So I would strongly disagree with them, and I would tell them you need to pay attention to this chapter here in Genesis. It's literally saying that you would be destroyed. Kind of the same punishment as the Day of Atonement, violating the Day of Atonement. So you might want to pay attention. So it says, and Yahuwah said to Abraham, the name of Sarah your wife shall not be called Sarah, or Sarai, probably in the Masoretic, with the I at the end. For Sarah shall be her name. So now, instead of Sarah or Sarai, she becomes Sarah. And I will barak her. And I will also give you a son from her. And I will barak her. And assemblies and kings which have dominion over peoples from her shall be. And Abraham fell upon his face and rejoiced and said in his heart, will the son of 100 years have a child? Uh-oh, this is the part here. Oh, boy. Sarah, the daughter of 90 years, bring forth? And Abraham said before Yahuwah, oh, that Ishmael may be established before you. And Yahuwah said, in verity, Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Itzhak, or Yitzhak. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant to his sons after him. And concerning Ishmael, I have accepted your prayer. Behold, I have baruch him, and I will spread him abroad very greatly. 12 princes will he beget. Now, this is kind of interesting. 12 princes. And I will set him a great people. But my covenant I will establish with Yitzhak, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this time in the year following. And when he had ended to speak with him, the esteem of Yahuwah ascended up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael, his son, and everyone born in his house, and everyone bought with his money, and every male from the men of the house of Abraham, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in that very same day when Yahuwah had spoken with him. And Abraham was the son of 99 years old when he circumcised the flesh of his foreskin, and Ishmael his son was the son of 13 years when the flesh of his foreskin was circumcised. In that same day, Abraham was circumcised. And Ishmael his son and all the men of his house, born in his house or bought with money from the sons of the Gentiles, were circumcised with him. So we just read the chapter of Bereshith, chapter 17. This is the chapter of circumcision. And the first time circumcision is being administered by Yahuwah through his son Yahusha, the word. So every time you see the word of Yahuwah, that's Yahusha, or sometimes it will say in the Aramaic in capitals, my word, to kind of basically make a point of pointing it out. So Yahuwah first reveals himself personally to Abraham as Al Shaddai. Later on, he will actually reveal his name to Abraham, and I've done a video on that. If you want more information on that, you can watch a video I put up recently debunking the idea that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob never knew Yahuwah's pronunciation of his name. I actually did a video debunking that theory, and I went through some scriptures in the book of Genesis, one from Exodus, and others where it shows that they all knew his name at some point. Maybe not at first, but they eventually were revealed Yahuwah's name. So, but this is a very interesting chapter. The 12 princes of Ishmael. I'm kind of still scratching my head prophetically what that might come of, or has that been fulfilled yet? With the 12 princes and stuff like that. I'm trying to see if anything else jumped out at me. The fact that Abraham changed from Abram to Abraham now. Sarai changed to Sarah. So he circumcised even the servants of his house that would have not been from his lineage. So, Gentiles. So, very interesting. Trying to think if there's anything else I might have forgot to make mention of. Let's see here. My word. Okay, Canaan. So he makes mention of his covenant that he makes between Abram and the importance of circumcision, because literally it's the covenant between Yahusha and Abram, his word and Abraham. So very important. So definitely want to make mention of this. This definitely sounds like circumcision is for today, and it's forever. It's never to be done away with, just like the rest of the Torah. I will say this. I did want to put this out there. I believe if, let's say, you never were circumcised as a baby, your parents were not believers, you come to know Yahuwah and Yahusha, and you're already way past, the 8th day, you're like a grown man. I would say you should be established in the belief, and you should somewhat know the Father's word and be led, into the whole belief of the scriptures and to keeping the Sabbath and all that before you get circumcised. That's my opinion. I believe if, let's say, you weren't able to be circumcised on the 8th day and your parents didn't do it, and so you would be in a situation like Abraham, where, he was raised pagan, according to the book of Jasher. So I believe that first and foremost, your belief has to be first. You have to be established. You have to be converted. You have to be led by the Ruach to actually want to obey the Father and Son. And you have to really count the cost before you get circumcised, if you have to get circumcised as an old man. That's something I wanted to make. That's something I personally believe, in my humble opinion. Ideally, all males are supposed to be circumcised on the 8th day. But unfortunately, in this modern Greco-Roman culture, some people never get circumcised as a child, and they grow up not circumcised. So there is a reality of that. So I would say if you're a new believer, you don't really know the word yet, get established with the word. Get convicted first. You want to be a true child of the Father before you get circumcised, because it's a serious thing. It's a very serious thing. So that would be my recommendation anyway. I don't know if anything else jumped out to you, Sister Shoshana or Sister Sally or Brother Dennis, or anything you'd like to add.
No, I think you explained that very well. And also, any man who takes the Passover is supposed to be circumcised before he takes the Passover.
Mm-hmm.
So this would coincide with what you said.
Yeah. Also, make sure before you get it physically circumcised that you're circumcised here, where I'm pointing. You better be circumcised in the heart, because Yahuwah actually puts that first and foremost. And actually, that was his problem with the Israelites in the Tanakh, as we'll see as we read along further on into the Torah. Yahuwah reiterates so many times, circumcise the foreskin of your hearts. Their problem was not the physical circumcision. At one point in time, his people were mostly physically circumcised once they got in the land and all that. they, the majority of the Israelites were physically circumcised, but they weren't spiritually circumcised, and Yahuwah wants that first. So to kind of piggyback off of, if you never got circumcised on the 8th day and you're thinking about getting circumcised, make sure your heart is circumcised first. That's all I'm trying to say. That I believe that's first and foremost, then get physical circumcision. So I'm not trying to say that physical circumcision isn't important. Please don't misunderstand me. So, but what I'm saying is first and foremost with the Father and the Father's heart is that you spiritually get circumcised. That you humble yourself, you want Him to teach you His word, and you want to do what it says. Once your heart is circumcised, then you can physically do it if you've never been circumcised physically before. So that's something I wanted to make clear of, to make it clear about. So anyway, so that was the end of chapter 17. So please stay tuned. We might do some more reading tonight, or we might wait until Shabbat night tomorrow night. So if we're not right back on, just stay tuned for tomorrow night, and we'll be continuing our reading. So that was Bereshit, Genesis chapter 17. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you got something out of this study tonight from us. And hopefully the Father, Yahuwah, and the Son, Yahusha, are using us to be vessels to administer truth to y'all and point you guys in the right direction. To our brothers and sisters that joined us tonight, thank you for joining us. And keep on having a very joyful and happy and glad and rejoiceful Feast of Tabernacles. Shalom.
Shalom.
All right.
Shalom.
You just get this on my third screen here.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom. All right. So